Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the Rambling Club. My name's Paul Carmichael, and this is normally when my colleague would say, and I'm Alan Lear. But Alan texted me just before to tell me I had to get to the presidential shed rather quickly because there was a bit of a problem. Now, see, over there, we've got the president, Tony, he's on the left, and, on the right there, that's the Reverend Robin Ince. We'd better go over there and see if everything's okay. They're usually okay, but sometimes things can get a little heated between them. I think we'll be okay today.
You cunt!
Oh.
You believe in God, are you COV or Catholic? Because they're both shit.
I am not religious, I am Anglican. So I have come here to tell you about the most important light that will lead you to something wonderful.
Yes,
Something
are you
marvellous.
talking about pederasty?
No, I am talking about Barbara Windsor.
Barbara Windsor? I am...
She is the
I am
best
married...
of the Barbaras. I am
She's
from the
not.
Church of Barbara.
Barbara Cartland, I've had her, everyone has. She says that in her book.
Barbara Cartland ate my royal jelly. The woman's become a bee. Did you know what? I'd just like to tell you this. I don't think you even know your Barbaras.
I do, and I know religion as well. Come in, let's talk about it.
Yes, let's.
Yes.
Let's all sit, and I was at Barbara Castle.
Tony, hello.
Hello.
How are you this week? You've got a guest. You've got the village vicar here, the Reverend Robin Ince.
And really pleased I am to see you here.
Well, gentlemen, as Robin is here, Robin, would you like to accompany us? We're just about to go off on a ramble as we do
Yeah,
every
sure.
Friday. Right, so in that case, as we all know, what we will do is we are going to drop our balls and see where we end up this week. So off we go.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. Thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
Well, here we are, gentlemen, in the great outdoors. And the numbers for our first ramble this week are...
1, 4, 9.
1, 4, 9. And 149 is... Other philosophical systems and doctrines. So philosophical systems and doctrines.
I'm going to start, if I may,
Yeah, of course.
with Stoicism, which is from the Greek, and it comes from stoa, which is a marble porch, from which the, who's the name, who was he?
Not Epicurus, was it? Was it
No,
Epicurus?
it wasn't. It was,
Epicurus was involved with Stoicism, wasn't he? Not.
Yes, he was, because the whole Epicurean thing is completely at odds with Epicurus, who was...
Yeah, because
Not-
that's
that's
why
so-
he ended up making tinned ham.
No, yeah.
Yes.
yes.
Not a
So
body
that's
at all.
Stoicism, and sort of in a nutshell, shit happens, and you just cope with it and get on with life. Wake up, in that sense, is like existentialism, which I've always thought in a Clive James way. You know, because when I was at university, I did study the existentialists, and Candide, in particular, the last line is of Candide, after all this metaphysical rambling, he comes down to, maintenant, il faut attendre le jardin. I paraphrase, but enough of talking about physics and philosophy, I've got the garden to do. And, in a sense, Clive James said the same thing. He said, existentialism is this. You wake up, if you're alive, then take it from there.
See, I love that definition of existentialism where someone said, not so much a philosophy, more of a bad mood. But I think it's... but I was going to start with scepticism because I remember reading Bertrand Russell's Sceptical Essays, and there's a brilliant story, and I forget the name now of which particular... I think both of us will be forgetting names as if we're watching Talking Pictures TV late at night, you know, when we can't remember anyone's name. And he was the person who led the skeptic movement, and one day one of his students saw that he had his head stuck in a ditch. But he then thought, how can I be certain that he doesn't want to be stuck in a ditch? Perhaps he's deliberately stuck his head in a ditch, and if I help him out, that's not the sceptical move, because I should and eventually, sometime later, he was finally pulled out of the ditch by someone else, and the student was worried he would be annoyed, and when the student said, I'm so sorry, but I couldn't be certain whether you'd actually deliberately stuck your head into the ditch, and he said, that's very, very good, and that's proper scepticism. Which I think is kind of...
It's really dull. In terms, not you're great, but I'm not getting involved in the skepticism movement with all its Nazi ideology.
Which Nazi ideology?
The one, I know a skeptic who is a skinhead, and he has a tattoo of God and the Virgin Blessed Mary on his forehead. And he's a skepticism follower and a Nazi. And he combines the two and goes to church every day. But as C.S. Lewis said, it is better to be a prostitute than someone who goes to church religiously every day.
He used to do that as a pick-up line all the time, though. No, Mrs. Pomfrey, Mrs. Pomfrey, you seem to be going to the church a lot. No, have you thought about being a prostitute?
Because you've got marvellous knockers.
I saw you at the produce show, and initially I really thought that was too big for the produce.
But C.S. Lewis ended it with, but it can be a bit preachy at the same time. But of course, it is better to be neither. Unless you are a skeptic prostitute.
Did the earth move for you? I don't believe so.
Yeah. Quite. Or, yeah.
Did the flat earth move for you? I'm sorry, this is a terrible date. I'm never going on this particular Tinder again.
But then there's a parallel cult, or philosophy, septic prostitution. So we could get on to skeptical septics who are prostitutes, and I think it's a good way to earn a living.
And while you're at home, see if you can turn this into a Venn diagram. Because that's quite a... I was thinking...
Quite a lot going on, isn't there?
As we were on a ramble, I was expecting, who's that shouting, "Oi, get off my land"? It's Big Pharma. I don't like, because a sceptical Nazi means that he's not, he would be, if he wasn't a Nazi and sceptical of Nazism, but if he is a Nazi, he can't be a skeptic. Because I think that means that he's failed his skepticism.
Well, you're very judgmental. He's struggling with it.
Yeah.
That's what we do every day. Every day is an adventure.
Oh, do you make it sound poor Nigel Farage? Every day Nigel Farage wakes up and thinks, but can I still be a Nazi?
Yes.
It's a real battle, and I think I'm the real victim here.
Yes, I think so too. He's got gorgeous eyes. But then so did Hitler. I remember Stephen Fry saying, it's wrong to say Hitler was a monster. No one could deny he had the most beautiful jade-stroke porcelain eyes. I know that doesn't really amount to a defence of the Holocaust. That wouldn't stand up in court.
He had brown eyes, Hitler. Brown eyes and brown hair.
He had blue.
Made the whole Aryan thing such a mockery.
No, his eyes were blue.
Oh, I think that's been made up by the Aryan groups.
I think so. But there's a proud link between scepticism and prostitution, because of course the French Revolution was fundamentally a materialist movement. It rejected all forms of theology and other, mythic formations like the monarchy. And the chronicler of the French Revolution, Victor Hugo, was such a prolific user of prostitutes that when he died, the city of Paris's prostitutes had a day off as a day of mourning.
He died of venereal disease.
And exhaustion.
I would imagine, but if doxycycline were available, he would have lived a longer life. Doxycycline. make your day.
How does philosophy enter into your lives as performers, your own personal?
Well, I think Montaigne. We should throw in Montaigne here.
Oh, yes.
Montaigne, yeah. So, because you as a modern languages student, I
And
knew
medieval. Excuse me.
But it is that you know, I know nothing basically by having I do not
That's
know.
it. Montaigne.
Is such a great thing, isn't it?
Also.
Yeah, to have I do not know to
No,
yeah,
Montaigne.
Montaigne, I think is because I didn't know very much about him until I read there's a woman called Sarah Bakewell, the most wonderful author, and she also wrote a book called At the Existentialist Cafe, which has this fantastic story where she writes about Heidegger and the fact that one day the Holocaust poet, as he was known, because he'd written poetry about the Holocaust and experienced it as well, Paul Celan was coming to the town that Heidegger was based in, and he went to every shop and said that his book must be placed in the window so everyone knew how important his work was. And then Sarah at the end of the story says, and the reason I put this story in the book is it is the only instance I've ever found of Heidegger ever doing anything nice for anyone else. And it's that kind of book. It's just filled with, at times, you know, deep understanding. But the Montaigne book it was like, what a great way. Again, it's kind of a properly sceptical way of looking at the world. Of saying, what do I know? What can I know? How I must doubt. I must always have doubt.
And with only like an altruistic outcome through the scepticism and through the searching. Here's another thing. Many people use the word the human condition. That was invented by Montaigne, because he was the first person to put the adjective in front of the noun. Properly, it would be la condition humaine. And he's widely regarded as the first person to say the human condition.
Yeah, and I would say that's how...
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that the human condition, once you give it that...
Fighting my corner here.
That kind... No, I think it's great because it makes me think in terms of a lot of the work that I do, which is, I think doubt is very, very important, but it's also important not to say that doubt is of equal worth on everything. So, there are some things that we should have 50% doubt on, there are some things we should have 99% doubt on, there are some things we should have 99% certainty on. And unfortunately, people confuse the two. Like, they'll have that thing where they go, but science was wrong about that. And then you say, who found that out? I think it was some scientists. So, you know,
that's right.
And I think that's the important thing, which is, but never, like I love, on that kind of perspective thing, I love Jane Goodall. I think Jane Goodall is a wonderful human being. And she wrote a beautiful book called Through a Window, which is her saying, you must remember that we only see the world through one specific window, which is the human window of experience. And even then, we're all actually looking through slightly different windows. So she talks about how we have a problem with believing that we are experiencing the world in the most refined way. That the colours we see are the most exact, and the dogs and the fish and all those other things, they're seeing it differently. But actually, no, we're seeing it in as exact or inexact way as many other, and that bit of bringing that in to feel, you know, to not feel so certain of yourself. I think if you believe in anything 100%, it immediately means you're shutting down some of the pathways that you can walk to go and find out more.
I was brought up without any doubt about certain things. I was brought up very religiously, so I was brought up good, bad, right, wrong, God, devil. And it's fascinating when you're brought up with that concept that no, it is right or wrong. When you abandon that, or when it abandons you, you are left terribly at sea. And I think it's probably taken me the best part of 30 years to come to a conclusion about where I sit now in terms of what I believe and what I don't. And I'm not certain at all. But I put that down to the first 16 years of my life was just so determined in case you can't have doubt. Because to have doubt is a sin in itself.
Yes. Well, that's why I often bang on about Alan Moore, but Alan Moore, the great comic strip writer, Thief, Vendetta, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, From Hell, such is that he has a very deep understanding of many different scientific ideas, but he also has room to place myth and mysticism there. But also, and I think it's that thing which is...
He's not afraid to put God into the equation.
Yes, and it's that bit which is to say, because faith and religion are so different. Religion is an organisation. Faith, I never have a problem with. It's like, I think one of the things that we should ask people more often is, if someone says, I believe in God, we leave it there. But that you haven't learned it. Like one of my friends, you know about this, Alan, Carlos Frank, and Carlos is an incredible cosmologist, and I was quite surprised when I heard him being interviewed once, and he said he believed in God. But then I talked to him about it. First of all, he said, I don't allow God into the laboratory, which I think is a beautiful thing to do to an omnipotent, omniscient being. And then the other thing is that he also, his sense of God, and I think this is where a lot of people get this wrong, and a lot of atheists get this wrong, is a lot of the religious people, the faith people I know, God is not so, hello, I'm on a big chair and you've been very bad. He, she, this force, whatever it is an emotional reaction. God is a sense that, like when I have a transcendent experience, and I personally don't have kind of religious or any God faith, but I think the experience that I just had, seeing this thing of beauty and wonder, is the same sensation that other people have, which they translate as being a connection with God.
Yep.
It's just that mine doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's only when you start bringing the rules in, when you start bringing in the misogyny. But I mean, Francesca Stavrokopoulou, which is a name you say over and over again once you've got it right, is she is a religious scholar, and she always says the Bible was a book written by men with daddy issues.
Yes.
And you look at what God is. The God, especially the Old Testament, is the worst example of how to be a father.
Of course.
You disappointed me, I created you, why didn't you? But the God of going, this connection with the universe, this God that doesn't say, stone those people.
And on that thought, two things occurred. One was an old Predator Eye cartoon with a very trendy vicar in his pulpit saying, of course, the intelligent Christian shouldn't see God as an old man with a beard sitting on a cloud, and up above him is a cloud and an old man sitting with a beard, and God simply says, what the fuck do you know? And that just reminded me of your whole diatribe. Well, it wasn't a diatribe, because it was very kind.
I think it's that thing, isn't it, which is, again, with the doubt, is I don't care what someone believes, and it's that old thing. What was it? The thing about your freedom stops at my nose or whatever it is.
It's an American legal precedent. A judge said your freedom to swing your fist ends at the other fellow's nose.
There we go.
And that's how I feel. So if someone, I don't have a problem with a lot of religions, but I do if someone says, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, he is able to break so many rules of the Bible in one way, and he, that camel's going to get through that eye of the needle rather than him. But then he will say that he is against the teaching of, anything LGBT in schools because it breaks his rear. So someone like that, first of all, I see the level of hypocrisy. And secondly, I go, well, no, it's not that I disagree with your belief in God, but I disagree with you using your belief in God to say that these people are lesser. And that's...
It's, in simple terms, thus far, you believe what you like, but don't force me to believe it. And also, if your faith leads to really destructive behaviour, then that is ethically and morally wrong. You can't partialise these things. Otherwise, you're just cherry picking. I don't like that bit at all. And you've got to take it.
Well, it's that bit, isn't it? It's that Karl Popper rule, isn't it? The Karl Popper, which says the voices you can ban in freedom of speech are those voices that wish to ban other people's. So if you have, again, going back to your Nazi friend,
a skeptic,
the skeptical Nazi, and in many ways, I believe he might have had two balls, but I can't be sure about the whole thing. But it is, but it is that interesting thing where you go. I forgot what I was going to say. It's a ramble, isn't it?
Yes.
But the Popper. Just
poppers.
Poppers.
You've taken poppers.
Yes, I have. That's how they got me here in the first place. It was like a 1980s Summer of Love, Hansel and Gretel, as I followed the trail of poppers into what turned out to be the witch's house.
Yes. On a medical note, amyl nitrate and glycerol trinitrate are still used for cardiac arrhythmias. You can still buy poppers.
You have given the audience a very long shopping list. I am worried that some of the boots in the area are not going to have the supplies that they need.
So you followed the trail of Popper. Oh, look, if we're talking about Jung versus Freud, and I'm a Jungian, and so I would say, no, blaming mother today.
Well, Freud, I think with Freud I realise we've moved psychology from philosophy, but I always think that he confused his thoughts with the thoughts of everyone. So things like that, wanting to have sex with your mother.
Yes.
I think that might be more down to impulsive thoughts, where you suddenly have a thought which is actually it's not a desire, it's your brain generating, as I've called it before, a public information film.
Yes.
That says, that's your mother. Remember, don't have sex with her. And Johnny, get away from your mother.
Well, I'm a free spirit. I enjoyed it.
It was a different time.
It was a different time.
Dressed as Margaret Thatcher.
I blame her.
Yeah,
yes.
That was the way you ended up in that canoodling with Cecil Parkinson as well,
That's
wasn't it?
right.
Ironically, I think fewer people would have slept with their mothers if Margaret Thatcher hadn't pushed Section 28 so hard.
Yeah.
That's indeed true.
That's one of my favourite jokes, by the way, the one where little Billy hears some noise coming from his parents' bedroom, he probably knows it, and he opens the door, and his mother and father are having sex, and he goes, what's going on? And the father goes, go back to your room, Billy, and I'll tell you shortly, okay? And then half an hour later, he's walking to Billy's room and he hears this incredible noise going on inside. And he opens the door and Billy is having sex with his granny. And he goes, Billy, what are you doing? And he goes, yeah, not so funny when it's your mother, is it?
Bravo.
I thought you were going to do the one where the boy walks in on them and goes, what's going on? And the dad goes, that's your mum's ears. I'm just checking your mum's ears for wax. And Billy says, oh no, they'll be fine. The milkman cleaned them out 2 hours ago.
Right, while we're on that, I'll give you one more. This was Chaz, from Chaz and Dave's full wedding speech, I believe, at the marriage of his daughter Kate and his son-in-law Paul. He stood up and he said, so, little boy and his dad are walking through the park and there are two dogs going at it. And he goes, Daddy, what are the doggies doing? And he goes, they're making puppies, son. Anyway, a few days later, he hears a noise in the bedroom and he opens the door and it's his mum and dad having sex. And he goes, Daddy, what are you doing? He says, I'm making babies. He says, well, flip her over, I'd rather have a puppy. To the bride and groom. There we go. Straight to the disco.
Robin, I remember the first time I was about 7, I suppose. I asked my mum, how are babies made? And she said, well, now, Toby, what happens is, because she's from Connemara and my dad was from Carpenter. Well, Toby, what happens is the man and the woman get married, and then gradually the seed is transferred from the man to the woman. Now, for an 8-year-old, I just thought a postman and a delivery of some sort. And it was on the way with a chirpy, in an envelope, but that didn't confuse me for very long.
You did a monkey cage quite recently where you were explaining that for a long time in Victorian biology, there was a big argument between two factions of people, one of whom thought that the sperm created the baby, and the other faction believed that the ovum created the baby. Yeah. And it took forever for people to realise you actually needed to combine the two.
Yeah. One is less important, and that's the one that's been given the most power. I often think that, there's, again, going back to Freud, there's all this talk of penis envy. I think, what about for men creation envy? The fact that, some women will have children and they will have 2 heartbeats inside them at one point and all of those things is... We did one the other day, brilliant academic called Helen King, and she has a great study of all the gynecological lunacies that have been believed over the last few hundred years.
Lunacy being one of them.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. And then the other thing was that the disease of virgins. Have you ever heard of the disease of virgins?
No, right? I'm afraid I haven't.
The disease of virgins, which was clearly set up to make sure that young girls married people, was that once puberty, once you had started menstruating, if you didn't have sex, all the blood built up and you became in grey and
I
white.
think I remember
And
that.
that was and then another one. She had this. We were at the Royal Society. Fantastic. They used to make in the 16th century these. You remember the Lift the Flap books that you used to have as a kid?
Yes.
They were like that, but of anatomy. So there was a man on one side, there was a woman on the other, and you could just keep unfolding, going further and further into the body.
That's right, I got one. Not here, at home. And it's very colourful, and it's from, I think, the 1930s.
Oh,
and
they're
it's very
amazing, aren't
artfully
they?
done. And then you reveal, it starts with full body and anatomy, and then you go and you can see just below the skin, then you can see the organs, then you see the skeleton, and then you see God.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are amazing. Because this one, right at the bottom in the middle, has just a pregnant woman. But over the genitals, the first flap is Satan. And you go, yeah, this is not healthy. You know what, Freud? I mean, look at this Satan envy is a bit. But yeah, I find all of those different things, those different ideas, really fascinating.
Yeah, and sorry, Al.
Okay.
Freud backed down with all the phallocentricity of the interpretation of penises, and he said, "Look, sometimes if you dream about a cigar, it's just a fucking cigar. Don't lose any sleep."
But that disease of virgins, right? You know, you see those lists of reasons why women were incarcerated in lunatic asylum, and a lot of the time they were incarcerated to get them out of the way because there was an inheritance that wasn't coming to the male member of the family, something like that. It was very often done with malicious intent, as I believe happened to James Joyce's daughter.
Yeah, Lucia, exactly. And again, Northampton, there's a whole chapter in Alan Moore's Jerusalem.
That's right.
And written in the style of kind of somewhere between Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake, so it's
Yeah.
quite a
Great.
remarkable bit of work.
The verisimilitude is remarkable, but it's a hard read, that chapter. But you look at the list of the reasons why the women were incarcerated, and one of them, I swear to God, is reads too many books.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, even when
But-
we were growing up, there were documentaries. I mean, when we would have been adults, there were documentaries made in the 1990s where there were women who, in their 70s, had now been released from asylums because when they were 14, they were pregnant and it was considered they were mad. So in the 20th century,
Good
there were women
Lord.
who spent their whole life, and that is. And realising it's one of those reasons that we have to go. A lot of these things are not. They're an arm's reach away.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
That's why we have to be careful of all those regressive voices. That
Indeed, next step is a scold's mask.
yeah.
Four, 5, 8.
4, 5, 8, which means we're talking about standard Italian language.
Okay.
Standard Italian language.
Ti amo con tutto il cuore, lasagna mozzarella. I love you with all my heart, lasagna mozzarella. E cazzo, you cunt. That's true. It's often used in Shakespeare as well. Cazzo. Meaning that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean literally a vagina. It's just a term of...
It's an equivalent term of abuse.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
What I love there as well is, as you said, you became one of those voices we often have in dubbing. You know the one I mean. It's like that kind of...
I'm doing my standard Italian is based around the Lucio Fulci movies, such as Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Yes.
And in fact, I am doing a gig with Fabio Frizzi, who wrote the music for, oh God, which one are we doing? I think it may well be Zombie Flesh Eaters, yeah. So that's my general Italian knowledge.
Right.
Which is,
Filmically, right.
yeah,
okay,
is
yes.
which I should know more, but most of it is somewhere between that and Don't Look Now.
Right. My favourites are Fellini, of course, and Pasolini, the genius mind of Pasolini. Think about the show which the film Shallow, half of which he was killed by the fascists, and the film is. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
You need a strong stomach. don't
Yes, you do.
God knows what the lost bit was like.
It's basically Desaad, isn't it?
It's
Days of Sodom, but just adapted
transported.
to the Nazis,
yeah, that's right, and it is a gripping film. But then he does something like the Decameron, and it's just beautiful and lyrical. And everyone who doesn't know anything about Pasolini, a little bit, enough to say, oh, that pervert, when he is widely regarded by many people as one of the greatest filmographers and filmmakers ever. And I concur with that.
Theorem's one of his, isn't it?
Theorem, that's right, Terence Stamp.
Yeah. Terence Stamp, I've always found a bit weird as an actor. I do find him a bit planky. And he's got a certain way of performing, and sometimes that works really well. But I remember going to an exhibition of, it wasn't Terence Donovan, it was one of the kind of great, 60s or 70s photographers. And we saw this picture of him with Jean Shrimpton, and it was my friend Carolyn, and kind of looked at it, and I just mentioned, I said, he's a bit planky, isn't he, as an actor sometimes? And then we went off, and then when we came back, we noticed, thank God he wasn't behind me at the time, Terence Stamp. And Terence Stamp, he did not look at, it was Terry O'Neill, that was it, did not look at any other Terry O'Neill photos. He literally just walked up to his photo of him with Jean Shrimpton, looked for a while and left.
There we go.
And but the Pasolini I was going to mention was the Canterbury Tales.
Because
it is one of the best ones if you ever play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yes.
Because it's one of these rare things where Pasolini is connected to Confessions of a Holiday Camp by Robin Asquith. Yes. Robin Asquith and also the glamorous Welsh wrestler Adrian Street, isn't
Adrian Street.
Yeah.
I said Adrian Straight because he was the guy who was heterosexual but was a foreigner of glam rock in the ring with Les Kellett.
Oh, Les Kellett,
Kendo Nagasaki.
Who actually was gay, and and beautiful documentary by Peter Blake all about Kendo Nagasaki. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I met Peter Blake a few years ago. It was a late night in a bar in Larne, and he came in with his wife and just sat down, joined us. We were all doing a kind of book festival, and I went over to him and I could imagine that he was thinking, I presume this will be another question about the Beatles. And I said, I love your documentary about the masked wrestler Kendo Nagasaki, and immediately it was like, come and sit down. We just talked about wrestling, but it's such a...
Giant haystacks.
Yeah, Giant Haystacks, who apparently, I think was a born-again Christian, had a very tiny car, and he was one of the only wrestlers who really got properly paid, because they all got ripped off.
Big Daddy was...
with the Crabtree family, that's very sore point for a lot of wrestling fans, because they really changed it from what it had been. Mick McManus, But there was if you get in this tiny little car with Giant Haystacks, and he'd be driving you, say, to Crewe or whatever, and he'd just go, well, let me tell you about Jesus. And more often than not, they say, actually, could you drop me this little chef? There's a lollipop I need to get. But I was hearing when I went to see Robin Asquith down at the Phoenix Arts Bar for Misty Moon. He told a great story, which is, I don't know if you remember this, but there's a moment where Robin Asquith urinates on an enormous number of people who are down beneath the balcony.
What's the name of the film?
This is Canterbury Tales.
Canterbury Tales, yes.
And he said to Pasolini, what do you want me to do? He said, just piss. Just piss. And he was like, because Pasolini, I think, liked him because he knew that he had basically turned down Zeffirelli, because Zeffirelli was who pops up in the With Thou Nice script as a kind of... And so Robin said, I opened the windows and then I started urinating. And that was when I realised that the extras, I don't think, had been told that I would be pissing all over them. Right. And then Stuart Lee sent me a message going, can you ask Robin Asquith how he managed to urinate for so long? Because I've always wondered how he managed to do it. And that's when Robin Asquith then explained to me this lengthy, because after the first couple of wees, there was no wee left. Yeah. So they created this incredible, so he had a special urination tank created and attached to his penis.
Why wasn't I involved?
It was before your time. It was 1972. You were a whippersnapper, a child.
Yes, but I had a...
Maybe the remake, maybe it's time.
Yeah, and I could do it without any special effects. As we discussed earlier. Also, I was Malcolm the Mountie. Do you remember Labatt's Lager? I was the face of Labatt's Lager. And when it was being filmed, Zeffirelli was doing something. And I was just walking to my dressing room, dressed in my Mountie costume, and he stopped me. And he put his hand on my chest and said, I think we should meet later. You ask my assistant, okay? Yeah. That's my story about Zeffirelli.
That wasn't the segue I was expecting. I was expecting you to go, piss, Labatt's lager.
No, he wanted me to shag him. And I didn't. I'm not that, way inclined.
However, when you were being Italian before, Tony, you were being quite... I felt the passion across the table.
Yeah, I did speak Italian fairly well because I did Spanish and French. And I went to a May ball with an Italian girl whose parents were clearly mafia, because she also brought her two brothers who shadowed us. So I didn't like her anyway, but I was very handsome then. And she was Italian. We spoke Italian together as the sun rose, and we were allowed a kiss on the cheek. And the two brothers leant forward. Enough! Basta! Not bastard. Enough. Basta.
I love that role of gender reversal Cinderella. That then she has to go round with some concrete boots and see who they actually fit.
And of course they weren't, in the original, they're not glass slippers, they're made of fur.
Yes.
Because they mixed up verre, which is glass, with verre, which is fur. So originally she had fur slippers.
Then Jack Jones got hold of them.
Yes, that's right.
Well, there's some folklorists believe it was a euphemism, don't they?
Yes.
The prince was trying on her fur slipper.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
Quite.
But when I was at university, I went out with a girl who was doing Italian, and she did her third year in Ferrara. So I went over there to visit her, and I was there for her last night. And there was the Italian restaurant they'd been visiting regularly. And they'd obviously made themselves very popular with the staff, because when the staff knew it was their last night in Italy. They brought free bottles of wine, there was free antipasta, a free pizza, all that sort of thing. But they all referred to the owner as the Don, and I was slightly worried that at the end of the evening he was going to come over with a box of matches and go, I do you a favour, now you do. You see the McDonald's over there?
Very good. Very good.
But Italy is a great place to visit if you speak good English, because you can navigate the signs. So much of the vocabulary in standard Italian is so closely related.
And they hate it if you speak fluent Spanish.
Do they?
Yeah, I don't know why.
No.
I did a job in Milan, and I spoke both Italian and Spanish. But when I spoke Spanish, because I was speaking to someone, they just didn't like it. It's like people who assume that in Brazil they speak Spanish, and if you speak Spanish in Brazil, it's a huge insult.
I was going to say, I bet the people of Portugal don't like being spoken to in Spanish.
That's right.
Because they feel like they're being overshadowed by another culture.
Thank heavens, I always just speak English very
Yeah,
loudly.
that's right.
They must absolutely love that.
They do.
The ever popular point and shout method
Yes.
of English polyglots. But apparently that was a religious thing, wasn't it? I remember that Al Murray explained this in a show, so how true it is I don't know. But apparently the reason that Brazil speak Portuguese and Peru speak Spanish is that Pope Gregory IX divided the South American continent between the two empires. So the Portuguese and the Spanish were kind of told by the Catholic Church which bits of South America they could have.
Just another reason not to believe in God. See each day as an adventure and be kind to one another. That's the Church of Rambling.
Beautiful.
Well, here we are back in the cosy confines of the presidential shed with Mr. Slattery and our special guest Robin Ince. Robin, have you enjoyed your ramble today?
I've had a lovely time rambling, and I've made my big shopping list of all of the pharmaceuticals that are going to change me. And thank you very much for that, Tony. And I've also now realised that I will never call him Montaigne again. I will call him Montaigne.
There we are.
We've discovered Tony's superhero name. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's super drug.
Very good.
All right, well, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this week here at the Rambling Club.
The club meets every Friday, but if you'd like to get in touch in the meantime, here's how you can find your fellow members.
So Tony's official website is www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch with us on the contact form on the website.
We're on Twitter @Slattery Live. Use the hashtag TSRC to discuss this week's topics.
I am on the remnants of Twitter to Paul Carmichael V. Robin, how can we find you?
Well, probably the best thing is if you go to Instagram, where I'm at Robin Ince 1969, because I put up a new poem every single day that I've written and put up all the kind of different things and try and plug other people's work. So yeah, just Instagram's a good place.
Perfect, thank you.
And Tony's also on the gram @Tony_Slattery_official.
Lovely. And you can head also over to Club Slattery at www.patreon.com/Slattery Live. And there you will find all sorts of goodies. So, for example, you get a brand new exclusive episode every single month you won't hear anywhere else. There's early access to all the episodes, all manner of other things as well. Go over to patreon.com/Slattery Live and have a look.
And of course, Tony also has a Facebook group at www.facebook.com/group/the_Tony_Slattery. So please do get in touch by any of those methods. We would be delighted to hear from you.
You've spread yourself around a bit, haven't you?
Spread themselves
Look who's talking.
Right, so until the next time then, it's a goodbye from Mr. Alan Lear.
Goodbye.
It's a goodbye from me, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from Mr. Tony Slattery.
Goodbye and thanks for listening.
And a goodbye from our special guest, Robin Ince.
Hello, goodbye, and thank you.
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with your host, the club president, Tony Slattery. He was accompanied by Steve Freye as the voice of the bingo machine and by our very special guest, Robin Ince. Tony was assisted by Paul Carmichael and Ella Lear. The music was composed and performed by Michael Livesley and Andy Fritzell. Silly voice are by Michael Livesley and the show's concept is by Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Ella Dubing, and the show's series producer is Erika Lear. Our executive producer is Chris Castle and the series executive producer is Mark Strixe. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club ist eine Fanfanitel-Produktion.